All right, welcome back to the dilemma. I'm Emma.
And I'm Brian.
Burn.
Burns.
We're never on beat with that, but it's kind of
We
our
gotta work.
we just roll with it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this one's going to be a little bit different than last week because we're in different states again. Last week you were out here visiting me in Florida, and it was one of my favorite podcast episodes, I guess you could call them, because I feel like you could really see the dynamic of our like relationship and just how we operate as besties, but you're also my dad, so it's
Like
kind
when you
of
call
fun.
me a like when you call me a pain in the ass. That is that what you're
Yeah,
talking about?
exactly.
No, I enjoyed seeing you, Emma. It was great to see where you live and hang out with you. It's a really beautiful little town that you're in, and just I always we always have fun together. Um, we even played that game, the thrift shop challenge, where
Yep.
you walk through with your hand touching the items and stop and when the person tells you to stop, and you got to buy whatever you last touched,
And then go to dinner in it.
and then go to dinner. And we did it.
And we did it, and it was a lot of fun.
It
So,
was fun.
but in this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about regrets, and not necessarily ones we have in business or in life, but um, or actually, sorry, both ones we may have in business or life, or ones that we are going to try to avoid, so we don't have any regrets at the end of our life, which is depressing.
Agreed. I think they all blend together, right?
Yes. So I have about three. I'm not sure how many you have, but if we just want to talk about three of each of ours,
Okay. Do you want
or
to go first?
I'll go first. So I pulled up the definition of a regret, but it's something that has happened or been done, especially a lost or missed opportunity. And an example in a sentence is she immediately regretted her words. And here's the thing is like a lot of times in the past when people ask me about my regrets, I would normally have said, I don't regret anything in my life because I've learned from my past and it's got me to where I am today, which I'm in a place I feel happy or I don't feel regret. However, as I was thinking about it, I felt like that was not brushing anything under the rug, but really not diving deep into, I don't know, just giving my perspective on what a regret is and if like truly are regrets I have. Um, I don't know. So that's just my perspective on it. That being said, my first regret is um now I just lost it, but my first regret.
So I can share with you a little bit. When I think of regrets,
My
it,
regret is just losing my train of thought.
that's okay. Do you want me to share a little something real quick?
Yeah, you can share something.
So when I think about regrets, I think about a lesson I learned from my father when I was a boy. My father had, when he was really young, before I was even born, he had a tattoo of his initials on his shoulder.
Mm.
And when he got older, after I was born, I was I don't know, middle age or not a middle age, not a middle school, but a elementary school kid. I remember my dad didn't like that tattoo anymore. He didn't want to have it. So he got it removed. But the technology at the time wasn't really very good. So when they removed it, they left a scar of his initials on his arm. So
Yeah.
he still had that. It was probably worse than the actual tattoo, to be honest. And the words that what he said to me at that time was just think very hard about doing anything that's permanent because um, your taste will change in 10 years. It may get worse, it may get stronger, but it will change.
Yeah.
You'll feel differently about things or a specific thing in 10 years than you did at that moment. So think about it deeply. And so for that reason, I didn't get tattoos all growing up. I do have one now, but I figured I'm 50, so who cares, right?
If you regret it in 40 years, you probably won't be here.
What? 10 years is what he said. 10 or 20 years. But and I'll still be around, but I did think deeply about it. I decided not to get one when I was young because I knew that when I got older I might have different tastes. But now I'm a little older and I got something that I don't think that I'll feel differently about in the future. And I just think that that was a good lesson that my dad taught me from his own mistake, from his own regret.
Yep.
And I think we've all seen the example of the person that got the tattoo on his back really large that says no regrets. They spelled regrets wrong and it says no regrets. And so it makes me think of that when I think of no, not having regrets.
Yeah.
So
And that story actually reminded me of one of my first, and that is like bad habits that I know in the moment are bad habits, whether it's something as simple as picking at my nails to the point where like they're bleeding, or I don't know, just like things like not working out as much as I'd like to in a week, but knowing that I feel better when I do. That's a regret. Even though it's something I can fix, it's still a regret in the moment because I know I'm not being the best version of myself. Think that bad habits that are continuous are almost continuous regrets. And I don't think that's talked about enough, that a regret can be something as soon as yesterday or as long ago as 10 years. So it's kind of ongoing. And I guess that can get, um, you can get very nitpicky about your regrets if you really look at like, okay, I'm not cleaning my house enough, or I'm not doing this enough. But it's things that you can change. So it doesn't need to be regret. It can be a habit that you get rid of or whatever. But
right.
currently, that's my take on it.
So what is your regret of a habit?
Picking at my nails.
Oh,
Um,
I do that, but I don't regret it. I enjoy it. I mean, I feel like that's pretty minor bad habit, if you will.
yeah, I guess also just like another bad habit would be just not sticking up for myself enough, or
Setting proper boundaries with people.
yeah, that's definitely like an ongoing regret that I'm like, I had the opportunity to prove to myself I could, stick up for myself or set those boundaries and I didn't. And that could be in work or life, but one that I'm constantly trying to work on.
Yeah, that's good. I think the one that you hear all the time is like at the end of your life, you're not gonna sit on your deathbed and say, I wish I had worked more, or I wish I had, um, done, made more money or spent more time at the office. And so I think for me, I'd like to say I don't have any regrets in that. I think if I look back at my career, I could have started in my particular field sooner, and I would have maybe moved along faster and moved up faster, whatever, gotten to the place I am today sooner. Something like what you've been able to do already is far beyond what it took me many years to do. And I think part of that was that I spent a lot of time in food and beverage because I worked as a busboy and a waiter in high school and in college, and a bartender and dining room manager. And then I finally realized when I was starting a family, like this isn't going to be conducive for that, right? Because you're working every weekend, really late at night, every holiday, like lots of hours. And so when I finally came to that realization, it was hard because I had to make a major career change, and it was the best decision I ever made. So I think my regret would be maybe not making that decision sooner and doing that sooner, but I did learn a lot from it too. And I learned about proper etiquette and how to set a proper table and how to host a large event and manage people and,
A
you know,
lot of things that you use in your current job.
yes, yes, absolutely. Because when you're working in that industry, you're talking to and interacting with a lot of different types of people, and I really appreciate the fact that I got to do that. And so I don't regret it from that perspective, but maybe maybe I should have figured out what I wanted to do sooner and started moving that direction sooner. So that would be probably what I would say about that.
That's a good one. Um, I think my next one is a little bit different, but it kind of applies more towards life. And we talked about this when you came out here, but it's not visiting like elderly family members because of the fear that they'll be leaving soon. And you miss that time with them because you're so caught up in the fact that you'll never be able to interact with who they once were to you, but who they are now, which is essentially like dying. So, which is kind of
We're all
dark,
dying, we're all dying at some point. It feels like.
but like very ill. So it's
Yeah.
very tough for me to have the drive to like want to stay connected to people who I feel like won't be with me for much longer because I want to hold on to like all the good memories. So it's almost like even though they aren't there, a lot of those people are still here on earth, and it's already a regret for me, which is a strange feeling, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I shared with you, I do the same sort of thing. I find myself pulling away from people that I know are kind of um, dying. If their health is deteriorating or whatever. I actually have an aunt that is my Aunt Madeline, who is on hospice. And I've had a hard time getting myself to carve out the time to see her.
Language is right in the audio on your side.
Oh, I'm sorry, you can hear that.
Yeah, but you're
Sorry.
good.
I was picking at the screen or something. Sorry about that. Anyway, my aunt is on hospice, and I've been telling myself I need to go see her, I need to go see her, but for whatever reason, I just haven't made the time. And I think it's that same thing. Like my mind is just not wanting to accept the fact that she's actually dying. And so I'm having a hard time with it, getting my head around it. So, and if I don't go see her, I know I'm going to regret that. So I'm very torn, and I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So another one I was reading in this article was a big regret that a lot of people have is they say they wish that they had the courage to express their feelings. And I think it's something that I've noticed myself doing more as I've gotten older, is making sure that you know how much I love you, and that your brother and your sister know how much I love them, and how proud I am of them, and all those things that maybe I don't, you don't always think to say, but I do find myself trying to make sure I do say them, whether it's in a text message or on your birthday, writing it in a card, or just telling you, that I'm proud of you and I think that you're doing really great things. Um, and I mean that as well as my point. But I find myself doing more of that as I'm getting older because I don't want to have regrets of not telling people how I feel, and only the good stuff. I don't think it's so important to make sure I got to make sure and tell that person he's an SOB, or whatever. I don't think that's so important. They don't need to hear my grumblings, unless it's something that I need to work out with somebody and say, hey, you know what, I've got this issue and I really shouldn't, but here's my issue, and let's make amends. That might be a good thing to deal with, but I don't really feel like I have those. I just want to make sure that the people I love, that um, they know, that I love them and that I care about them, and I value them, and so forth.
Yeah, and I think you do a good job with that with not only your family members, but people you work with. is you take the time out of your day if you've ever worked with someone in the past, or say someone comes to the top of your mind, it's like you make sure you send them like either a quick email or quick note on Facebook or whatever it is, to just be like, hey, like just catching up with you, like how are you doing, or like, I miss these times, or you were really great to work with at this point in your life. And it's something really special, and I think goes a long way with people, because it is your true feelings, and a lot of people do have a tough time relaying that to people or expressing that. So I think you do that well, and it helps people feel connected to you in a lot of different ways. Which is why you have so many friends.
I think my mom's gonna kill me for saying this because I know she listens to this podcast, but I remember her saying that my grandfather never told her that he loved her.
Mm.
And she knew he loved her because he did. It was obvious. She was his favorite. He loved her more than anybody. Well, maybe his wife, right? Um but it was almost as if he had a harder time telling the people that he loved the most how he felt about them.
Wow.
And yeah, and so, but it was hard for her because he passed away and she never got to hear those words from him. And I don't ever want to do that to my kids or people that I love. And I think it was just something that he wasn't built that way. He couldn't express it to the people that he loved the most for some reason.
Yeah.
So I hope my mom doesn't get upset by that, but I know that he was a great man. He obviously loved her, and he loved his grandkids and his kids, and he did reconcile with people that he had some challenges with, but he wasn't good at verbalizing it.
And
So
what's interesting about that perspective is that maybe her regrets of never hearing those words, or maybe now his regrets of never saying it, are now reflected on the way you act and the way you convey your love towards people. So it's almost like someone else's regrets taught you a lesson in how you want to act, which is kind of a cool, we obviously learn from other people's mistakes, but it's like not only are we learning from our own as we go through life, but others are learning from us
yeah,
in unknown ways, or ways that they're
yeah.
going to.
So in a indirect way, he taught me that lesson, even though
Exactly.
he didn't actually verbalize it to me.
Exactly.
Um, yeah. The other one that I've heard people say is that they wish that they had let themselves be happier. I think a lot of times we I know I tend to do this. I'm what you would call like an accommodator. I want everyone else to be happy. I want to, if we go on vacation, I want to know, or let's use Disneyland as an example. Okay, Emma, what ride do you want to make sure you go on? And Peyton, what ride do you want to make sure you go on? And I make sure that everybody gets their ride that they want to go on. And I'll usually get my thing in whatever I want to do, but
Usually, you are the man of the mission. You're the power walker.
well,
It's
because I want to make sure we accommodate everybody.
we're the ones like that. It's okay. We just want to like hang
Have
out
fun.
and have fun time. Yeah, I don't think this is a good example.
Maybe not, but is it stirring up some emotions for you? I think my point is that sometimes people like me that are wanting to accommodate everyone around them, sometimes we neglect ourselves and don't do the things that make us happy. And I think I usually try to work in, my own things in there, but I actually find myself getting I get fulfillment from seeing my kids or my loved ones get what they want. So it doesn't feel like a regret to me to see, you do get something that you want, because that's fulfilling for me.
I think that kind of plays into one of mine, and that's just like trying to be how others want me to be, like morphing my personality, or maybe who I think they think I am, trying to be that person versus just being myself. And I think one of the like one of the people in my life who helped me discover that was Riley, because she's always been very sure of herself, and it's helped me understand how I connect with her in the ways that I do that. It's because she is so confident with herself that it's easy to be her friend. You get who you get and take it or leave it. And it's very respectable. And it's always hard because I feel like I've grown up like, okay, you know what? You need to read other people's body language, and I find fulfillment in connecting with people and finding ways to connect people. But sometimes I can get lost in the sauce essentially and find myself morphing into someone who I'm not because I'm trying to grab onto a connection, or I'm
Mm.
trying to find some way to understand someone. And instead, I feel like a regret in my past has been there's been so many moments where I could have had such a big breakthrough internally with just going, this is Emma Burns, and we connect in a different way, or we don't connect at all, then kind of becoming who I think they want, so that we do have that brief moment of like almost like an aha moment, like, oh yeah, we could be best friends, or, you know, I don't know, just we could form like some type of connection. So, yeah.
I think you're basically, what I'm hearing you say is that it's about being your authentic self with people and not trying to be somebody that you're not. And if that clicks and connects with somebody, then great. And if it doesn't, at least they know who you are, and you can make that determination
Yeah.
rather than becoming friends with someone for something they're not.
Yeah. And I think it's a constant battle because even in our industry, sometimes it's really hard to find like prospects or even people you're working with to connect with. And it's very important for the job. If you can't connect with people, it's a make or break for a lot of like people you're talking to. And so you find yourself grasping at anything so that when you get on the phone with them, you make an impression and a good one.
Yeah.
But I feel like even lately, I've found that just picking up the phone and maybe not going off of where they went to school or every little fact about them, um or their title, going after that and forming a message for that, just picking up the phone and introducing yourself and like, why you actually want to talk to them today, and finding a
Right.
through that has helped me actually like form a dialogue with them and kind of like a rapport. So it's kind of been cool because I've been working through that through work.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back, I think I'd like to go back for a second and talk about like the saying of not regretting working too much or working too hard or working, this and that. That isn't to say that we shouldn't work hard. I believe very much in working hard, and when you're at work, you put your all into it. But I think that what a lot of companies, I know the one I work for now, they've learned is that it's important to have that work-life balance so that when you're at home, you're able to be at home and be engaged and be present. And when you're at work, you're able to be engaged and be present and be productive. And so I think there's some value to that. And I think that we can have a strong impact on the people that we work with as well by being present and being engaged in what we do and doing it really well and being a great example.
Yeah.
So I don't regret per se, like working hard, working a lot, any of those things. But I think it's important that you also make sure that you're fulfilling the things at home and you're not neglecting things at home because you're working all night or going above and beyond what is even necessary because you're trying to avoid something at home or neglect something at home. So, even my boss the other day, he's like, yeah, I'm not like, I'm at this conference right now. That's why my background's a little different than normal. He couldn't make it because he had his daughter was in this volleyball tournament, and he's like, I'm not going to miss that. And I respect that. And he values that work-life balance. And, not that he's not working today or any of that, he is, but he couldn't make the commitment to get on a plane and be out of town because he wanted to be able to, after work, go to that tournament, that type of thing. And so I think it's important that we find that balance and still do a great job at work and do the things that we're expected to do and that we need to do to be successful, because that also helps us to provide for those loved ones at home and provide, lifestyle and that type of thing. So I think it's all about finding that balance. I think that's where you do away with or eliminate some of those regrets that you might have, is if you find the balance and you're not avoiding or neglecting the things that you should be doing in your personal life, if that makes sense.
Yep.
That's all I have to say about that.
I think that's all I have to say on my regrets.
Okay. Well, I think that what we can do too is make a commitment to ourselves that, we'll try to live our lives from here forward. We can't go back and change things that we did wrong, right? Or didn't do the way that we would have done now, but we can certainly try to think in that mindset, like, is this something I'm going to regret in the future, and try to be, the kind of person that we won't be disappointed in when we get to our deathbed someday.
Yep.
Hopefully a long time from now.
A very long time for me.
A very long time for you. It's just around the corner for me. The bus is coming.
All right, I have a question for you.
All right, are we wrapping this up with a question?
Yep.
Hit me.
If you were to shop at one store for the rest of your life, what would it be? Clothing store.
Ooh, okay. So my first answer was just going to be simple. It was going to be Amazon, because
I was going to say the same exact thing.
Amazon has everything. But I will tell you, if we're talking clothing, I'm going to make a plug here for this company that I have no reason to, but there's clothing on this. There's a clothing store. It's an online store as far as I know. That's how I purchase from them. It's called Flag and Anthem. Flag and Anthem.
Never heard of it.
So it's a patriotic name, but their clothing is just, men's clothing. They have women's clothing too, I think. But excuse me. But I really like their clothing. I've worn a couple of the shirts. This isn't one of them, but I've worn a couple of the shirts on the podcast. The plaid pink one I had, and then a blue one as well. And I've bought a few things from them, and I like that clothing store. So if I'm going just clothing, I probably would go Flag and Anthem. If it's everything else, it's if I could only shop at one place, it would be Amazon, because you can buy just about anything from Amazon.
Yeah, that's true.
Now I'm going to ask you the same question. What clothing store would be your only one if you could only pick one?
Well, it depends on my resources, because if I could shop at one store for the rest of my life, it would be Free People. However, that is like a store I shop at maybe once a year because it's so expensive.
A little expensive, okay.
Yeah, if I were to realistically shop at one place a year for clothing, I really like Cotton On just because it has a lot of good basics. And jeans, I love their jeans. Or maybe something a little bit more impractical, but also has a lot of good pieces, is Zara, which they have basics, have cute dresses. You can kind of shop for any occasion. So yeah, those two. Or Abercrombie. I really like their stuff. They just like redid their, I'm choosing three places now. It's tough. Okay, I'm gonna choose Free People if I had unlimited resources, and
Okay.
Abercrombie if I am where I am right now.
Budget. Yeah, okay. All right, fair enough. I think we answered it.
All right, well, thank you for joining me today, and especially because you're on your work trip, you made it back to your hotel just so we could continue filming this. We like to be consistent, and We're going to continue to do so. So we'll see you next week with another dilemma.
Sure, and like and view and all that. Maybe
And
even
share,
follow.
please, like and view this because he sends me the numbers every few hours.
Well, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel,
Yeah, you
the
can.
Daily Dilemma YouTube channel.
And
And
we're
if
going
you
to be
subscribe, it's free, but you can subscribe, and it would help to spread the word about the dilemma.
yeah, about our dilemmas that can maybe answer your dilemmas.
Yeah, share it with others. Maybe they have the same dilemma.
Yep. All right. Talk to you next week.